The year is 1996. Daniel Panoz started his own company 7 years ago and has built his first 50 road cars, the Panoz Roadster. His father, Don Panoz, has decided that they should build a motorsports team to help promote the company. They are early in development of a new car similar to the SN95 Ford Mustang named the Esperante. But instead of building what would eventually become the Esperante GT, Don has decided to go straight to GT1, the most expensive and most competitive class of sports car racing in the world, which is currently being dominated by the McLaren F1, with cars like the Mercedes CLK GTR, Nissan R390, and the Toyota TS020 currently or soon to be in development. Panoz didn't have the ability to develop the car in-house, so they contacted Reynard Motorsports, a manufacturer that specialized in open-wheel cars, particularly in the IndyCar series. Despite specializing in open-wheel cars, they also assisted in the development of the Dodge Viper GT SR, which debuted in the 1996 season in the GT1 class. Don Panoz insisted that the engine be mounted to the front of the car to at least be somewhat similar to the later Esperante road car. With the development of a new driveline that only weighed 6 pounds, this became a viable option. Now all they needed was an engine.
Hard to believe that Mark Martin has not led a lap in NASCAR Winston Cup competition this year, but I think that's going to change.
Don Panoz had initially wanted to use the 4.6-liter engine from the Mustang GT, but it wasn't powerful enough. They needed something bigger. Panoz still wanted to use a Ford engine, however. He found one. He contacted Roush Fenway Racing to purchase a NASCAR Cup Series engine for his new GT1 project, the same engine that Mark Martin used. In NASCAR, the engines would normally produce about 700 to 730 horsepower, but in the Panoz Esperante, it would only produce about 640 horsepower to increase the reliability of the engine. Now with the car finished, Panoz would need some drivers. 3 drivers would be needed for the 12 hours of Sebring that was only a few weeks away. The most experienced of the drivers selected for the debut was Eric Bernard, a French Formula One driver that scored a podium in 1994 at the German Grand Prix in Ligier. He also had 2 DNFs in the 1995 and 1996 24 Hours of Le Mans before joining Panoz. Joining Eric Bernard was Doc Bundy and Jeff Perner. Both had some success in IMSA. Now, with everything in place, the car was ready for Sebring.
Just a moment ago, we talked about the new era of sports car. You may be looking at it right here, an FIA sports car. Front engine is called the Panoz. I got to tell you, this is an exotic creature. It's got a NASCAR Roush motor, fuel injected. The design, though, for the chassis is made by Reynard. It's really fast. The question is, will it last? This is its first race. Doc Bundy gets the pleasure of starting it. Okay, that's the question. Will this thing go for very long?
Well, we're looking at this thing, Rick, as an extended test, so our plan is to keep it running. We're not worried. We know we got speed. We just want to keep it running.
All right, Doc Bundy plans to keep it running. Right now, we're going to run down to Marty Reed in GTS2.
Panoz said they were going to treat Sebring like a test session. And what a test session it was. They broke down on the pace lap due to faulty electronics, but the race would go on.
The clock has started as the 3 Ferraris come across start-finish. The GTS1 pole-sitting Panoz is being pulled off the racetrack, as you can see. Here are the Ferraris side by side off the final turn. It is showtime, ladies and gentlemen, at Sebring as we look for the green to go in the air. We're underway.
And I would not be surprised to see James Weaver in that 16 car again.
Half an hour later, the car was repaired, but it broke down again before they completed a lap. They had to be towed to the garage again.
He's going down to the hairpin now, so he's just gotten that car back on the racetrack. Probably run it back to pit lane because he's going to pull off again. He's slowing again. So obviously they haven't gotten their problem completely sorted out.
They repaired the car again and were very competitive in terms of pace, but then it broke down again and was not repaired. It was retired from the race. Panoz wasn't the only car to have a bad day. Chevrolet, Acura, and Porsche also suffered DNFs.
And so he never saw that Corvette. Even though there would have been yellow flags waving there, he never saw it because he was tucked in behind that. Out of the...
Ooh. Yeah, we'll take another look at that in slow-mo, and we may want to take another high-speed look at it and listen, because it sounded like it might have been something mechanical. Here you see...
Hockenheim was the second race. It didn't go well.
Mainly it was computer problems. It was running rich, running lean, and we couldn't get a fine balance. We had misfires, various misfires, and eventually we had a few fires as well.
Road Atlanta was up next, and the Panoz actually won the race.
Well, when I drove the McLaren, it was a fabulous road car that was converted into a racing car, but the championship's now moved on, and everybody's building more a car that's more biased towards being a proper racing car.
Now the time had come for the most famous race of them all, Le Mans. In 1997, only 3 months after its debut at Sebring, Panoz would field 3 cars in the race, numbered 52, 54, and 55. There was also a number 53, but it was disqualified and did not start the race.
Here? We're not picking up fuel then. Did you hear that? He's out of gas. Hey, just try and keep it sloshing around and pick it up as best you can. Are my guys down there with you, and can they push you?
The fuel reserve failed when Butch was on the way into the pits, so it effectively stopped, and the marshals pushed him to a position of safety, and he tried to explain to them in best American that the safest place for it was back in our pit. The marshals disagreed and left him at the start of pit lane, so Butch then put it in first gear and cranked it along on the starter motor until the ring gear broke, the starter motor melted and the battery went flat, at which point he had just got into pit lane. So the lads ran down and pushed the car up here. Butch has now got his feet up having a cup of tea. There are about 8 guys falling all over the back of the car trying to fix it. Yeah, leave the fuel pumps on the whole time, otherwise it won't get us all.
The number 55 and 52 cars broke overnight, 10 and 11 hours into the race, but the number 54 car soldiered on until the engine failed.
You've seen what the mechanics have been through. You've seen how much they've worked over the last few days, well, months actually, but especially the last few days. For them, it would have been nice to bring it home. But it wasn't to be this time, but we'll have to come back.
48 cars started the race and only 17 cars finished the race. None of them were Panoz. They had the speed to compete with the greatest machines in the world, but they could not match their reliability in their first attempt at Le Mans. McLaren F1s took first and second in the GT1 class, only beaten by one lap by a 1995 Porsche Le Mans prototype that was based on the Jaguar XJR14 Group C. Porsche had sold the car to Joust in 1996 so they could focus on their GT1 project. The Porsche GT1 suffered many mechanical failures and crashes during the race. 6 Porsche GT1s did not finish the race, but the 2 cars that managed to finish got 3rd and 4th in the GT1 class. After the race, Don Panoz wondered if they could reduce the amount of time refueling by implementing an electric motor to assist their NASCAR V8. 25 years later, hybrid technology is well understood, but back in 1997, it was a radical idea. Back in 1990, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, issued a mandate that 2% of light-duty vehicles in the state of California must be electric by 1998. This mandate would later be canceled, but it motivated manufacturers to invest in EV technology. One of these companies was Zytec Automotive, a British engineering company. They got to work converting 3 Lotus Elises into EVs. They initially used nickel-cadmium batteries, but were later swapped out for nickel metal hydride batteries, which had a higher energy density. The 2 DC motors were capable of producing 100 horsepower each and only weighed 13 kilograms. The total weight of the car was only 875 kilograms, giving it an excellent performance characteristic. Zytec toured the USA looking for manufacturers to invest in their new technology, but none of the major manufacturers were interested. But Panoz was interested. In November 1997, Zytec and Panoz teamed up to enter the hybrid version of their race car in the 1998 24 Hours of Le Mans. The hybrid race car would only use one electric DC motor, producing about 147 horsepower, upping the peak power of the car from about 640 horsepower to nearly 800 horsepower, but this power was offset by about 200 pounds of nickel metal hydride batteries and 220 pounds in additional electronic components. 200 pounds of nickel metal hydride batteries are capable of holding about 30 megajoules of power. For example, in 2015, most LMP1 hybrid cars only held less than 8 megajoules of power. The time had come to qualify for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Pre-qualifying would be split into 2 6-hour-long test sessions, a morning session and an evening session. Panoz would field a total of 3 cars, number 44, 45, and 46. The number 46 was the hybrid Q9. In the morning session, 7 GT1 cars would compete for 5 slots on the grid. At 7:30 a.m., the number 45 Panoz was unleashed alongside the all-new and improved Porsche GT1, the TS020, and the Nissan R390. After 6 hours, the results were in, and the number 25 Porsche was the fastest in qualifying by more than 2 seconds. The Panoz, driven by David Brabham and Andy Wallace, managed 5th position, officially qualifying for the race. All 5 of the GT1 qualifiers were faster than all 8 LMP1 entries, including factory efforts from both BMW and Porsche. With the morning session concluded, it was time for the number 44 and number 46 to join the track. There were 9 GT1 cars competing for 7 slots on the grid. David Brabham and Eric Bernard would take the wheel of the number 44 car and become the 6th fastest car in class over the next 6 hours. The engineers at the team knew that the hybrid's batteries were too heavy to set a good qualifying lap, so they decided to remove 150 pounds of the batteries to improve their chances of qualifying for the race. James Weaver and Perry McCarthy, the Stig, did their best, but after 6 hours, the number 46 was the slowest of all 16 GT1 cars competing for the 12 slots on the grid. The main shaft inside the DC motor failed, and the car was forced to qualify with all of the extra weight, but without the extra benefits of the 150 horsepower boost they had expected. To make matters even worse, the team had forgotten to remove the 150 pounds of extra batteries that they had planned to. Their best time was 12 seconds slower than its non-hybrid counterparts and 10.5 seconds too slow to qualify for the 1998 24 Hours of Le Mans. A disappointing end to the car's chances to race in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But there was another hope. They could enter the race in the first ever Petite Le Mans, a 10-hour-long race held in October at Road Atlanta, a track owned by Panoz. One of the improvements the car had for Petite Le Mans was a stronger main shaft. The hybrid qualified well, nearly matching the lap times of their conventional counterparts, and were prepared to win the race.
As soon as they go across the line here, they're almost cleared up with this oil. Now this is where the Panoz crashed on oil yesterday, destroyed the car, backed it into the walls.
One hour into the race, the batteries exploded and they lost the hybrid unit. Despite losing 150 horsepower and carrying 200 kilograms of ballast, the car was still competitive for the next 9 hours. all was said and done, the car was in third place. The rules would change for 1999 and the Esperante would evolve into a new car, but Panoz would never field another hybrid. They also switched from the Ford NASCAR engine to the Chevrolet LS platform.